Cloudcast Media. Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, and we are so pleased to have this group back in the studio. Can't talk enough about the great work they do, and that's the San Diego Women's Foundation, joined by its executive director, Stephanie Cook. How you doing, Stephanie?
Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing just fine. Whenever I see folks on the agenda, we know there's so much content to share about the great work you've been doing. How long have you folks been in business?
We are celebrating our 25th anniversary this year.
Oh my goodness, 20. You got big plans for that?
Yeah, it's been a busy year. I mean, we kicked off our anniversary in January, and we're holding gatherings all across the community to bring members and founders together. We're going to have a massive annual grant celebration in June. We just held a 10-year event to celebrate the anniversary of our fellowship program. We're busy.
You are always busy. We're joined by Sophia Lee, student filmmaker, as my co-host, and every so often, my associate producer sits in, Brandon Joe. He is also an entrepreneur. He started his own business called Treasure Hacks. He's a junior at UC San Diego, soon to be finishing up, I think, in June, and then he'll be on his senior year coming up in the fall, right?
Yep. Only 1 year left.
Only 1 year left. That sounds terrific. So just real quickly, Stephanie, what's the mission of the organization?
Yeah, we connect, educate, and inspire women to come together in collective philanthropy.
And explain collective philanthropy, which is one of the greatest things I remember when you first started doing this, and it made all the sense in the world. But for those who are not aware of what collective philanthropy is, maybe you can give a little explanation.
Yeah, at its core, it's a pooled philanthropy model. So the concept is that you or I could give individual donations to nonprofit organizations or causes that we're passionate about, but what a massive impact can we make if we pool our philanthropic resources together to be able to grant out tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars to the community every year.
And how much have you done over the years?
We've done $5.3 million to date.
Yeah, which is amazing. And on top of it, because of your strategy, you also have an endowment you're building, correct?
That's right. Over $5 million too, which is incredible in helping us, continue to serve the nonprofit community, continue to elevate and inspire women philanthropists.
Yeah, and what's so cool about this, Sophia, I've been fortunate enough to be involved with many nonprofit, Council on Literacy, Classroom of the Future, Junior Achievement, and a bunch in between. With this group here, so they take the money of their members, whatever the pool is, and they save some of it we're going to build up our endowment, and some of it is going to go into this pool that whatever the topic is, it could be, focused on, literacy, it could be focused on, some of the child issues that we have in San Diego or whatever. And now instead of giving, $500 out here or $1,000 out here, they're able to give some pretty big dollars out, maybe up to $25,000, per group and all that. So explain how that works as well.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it. You really know how we work. Essentially, we have a little over 200 members of the Women's Foundation, and they pay an annual membership due. And the largest portion of that goes directly into our annual grants pool. We then run a really cool research process where a committee of our members, look out into the community. What's happening? What are some emerging issues or issues that are underfunded? And they, do the research, put out a survey to our members who then, through a democratic vote, decide what we're going to focus on. And you're exactly right. Once we have a grants topic for the year, we run a member-driven grant selection process. And at the end of it, we're able to grant out $25,000, $75,000, $100,000 individual grants to organizations doing really impactful work.
Great. Sophia, any questions you have?
Yeah, so what is this year's topic for donation?
Yeah, so this year, based on the research our members did last year, they decided to focus on social isolation and loneliness in seniors, which is a massively important topic. Over the course of the research last year and feedback from the nonprofit community, we've learned that About 20% of San Diego County's populations are seniors age 65 plus. 18% of them are living in poverty, many with disabilities. 17% live alone. And there's really compelling research that has linked social isolation and loneliness to a higher risk for a variety of mental and physical health conditions, ranging from high blood pressure to depression and cognitive decline.
Yeah, and I think, here's the double-edged sword on that, Sophia. As the population ages and we are living longer, then what comes with it is social isolation on some of those. Alzheimer's is growing because it's an age thing, and we happen to be living longer in this aspect of it. And unfortunately, the biggest group of homeless are now seniors in the area. That's part of it too, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, through the appreciative inquiry survey that we've sent out to the nonprofit community to ask what's going on in the senior population, we've absolutely learned that, especially in San Diego, where the cost of living is so high, rising rent costs, folks experiencing loss and then only having a single income in the household or not having family living nearby, they're facing homelessness, they're facing hunger, they're facing poverty. There's a variety of things that they're grappling with alongside isolation and loneliness.
Right, exactly. So are the awards, they're coming out? Have you identified the groups that are getting there?
Not just yet.
And when's that going to be?
So we are just entering into the third stage of the really involved grant selection process. So we did an open letter of inquiry to any nonprofit organization that thought they might align with our grant funding priorities, whittled down to a small pool for proposals. That has now wrapped up. So in the next month or so, our teams of our members will be going on site visits to a small group of organizations that are highly qualified and really align with our funding priority. And we'll be able to announce those awards in May.
Yeah, and what's so cool about that is once they've done this narrowing, and everyone sort of has their own favorites of what they want to do, but it's a group that has to vote on it, right? Does the whole membership vote on it?
They do. It's one member, one vote for our final funding.
Right, exactly. Okay, can't vote early, vote often, none of that stuff, right? Exactly. Brandon?
I'm just so curious because it's a huge space to be working in. And maybe you can't give out who it is, but we can just give a little bit of a hint of like some of the cool stuff that is going on in San Diego for supporting the elderly.
Oh, we've learned so much through the, through the appreciative inquiry, through the research, and certainly through the written grants that we've seen so far. Folks working to bring technology to seniors and help them understand how they can use technology as a tool to connect with folks that, maybe they're geographically isolated from, organizations that are trying to kind of create communities of care so that they can connect seniors with each other or create intergenerational programming so that there's sustained opportunities for seniors to come together and connect with folks in a meaningful way. We really won't know who the final groups will be for another couple of months yet, but I have no doubt that it's going to be folks doing really important, impactful work.
Right. And of course, as the tradition with the San Diego Women's Foundation, we have those folks on once they've been identified. So we're going to look forward to who those folks are and have them a shout out on what they're doing. And part of the benefit of this, Stephanie, is, with your membership. And it's about 200 members, and some have been there for the whole time, and some come in and out and back in and all that business. How many of them, when they're doing all this research over all these years of these great organizations, whether it's social isolation or it's women's health or it's literacy, actually join an organization that they've been researching?
Oh, so many. We haven't done the work yet to quantify that, but it's anecdotally something we hear so often that whether an organization is ultimately funded by the Women's Foundation or not, through the site visits, through the proposals, through events where we go out to nonprofit organizations to see the work that they're doing in person, our members fall in love with these groups, with the staff, with the work, with the mission. They go on to become significant donors, board members, volunteers. The 200 plus Women's Foundation members are highly engaged in the community.
Yeah, and they always have been. We're chatting with Stephanie Cook, Executive Director of the San Diego Women's Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlossberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest running community podcast, now in our 19th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County, from food security to financial literacy to arts and everything in between. Honored to have as my co-host, Sophia Lee. She's a student filmmaker, and joining us also as associate producer of the Spotlight Show, Brandon Joe. Sophia, another question you have?
Yeah. So, if I were a woman in San Diego who wanted to be involved with the San Diego Women's Foundation, but I have a low to middle income, would I still be able to join? If not, how else can I get involved in the philanthropic community?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, so we have currently 2 formal dues tiers that are open to any person based on their, personally identified giving capacity. And the reason that we created the second tier was to open up more opportunities, recognizing that our original dues tier, $2,500, was a significant barrier for many who wanted to get involved. We're having ongoing conversations about whether or not we have capacity to add in a third dues tier to break down further barriers that are keeping, community-minded women from joining us. But I will say, the Women's Foundation, we have internal programs where we can create scholarships and make space for folks who want to get involved in our work, but just don't have the capacity at this point in their lives. Outside of that, most of our programming is open to the community, our learning sessions, social opportunities to just come connect with our members. We see all of that as an opportunity to just really build our connections within our membership body and well beyond.
So on the topics you choose, it's Sophia was talking about before, this one on social isolation. Do they rotate, or you're obviously you're adding new ones, or is it usually these 6 or 7 that pops up? How does that work?
Once upon a time, we had rotating
I know.
grants focus
I remember
areas.
that.
Yeah, I want to say it was our maybe 15-year strategic plan where we shifted away from, rotating between 4
That's
sort
right.
of big picture, like arts, education, like sort of big conceptual issue areas. And we moved to this research-based process because we wanted to be able to be nimble and address emerging needs as they're evolving in the community. So now we never know what it's going to be from year to year. We've funded in the past couple of years everything from human trafficking prevention to supporting asylees, youth homelessness. So from year to year, it really just depends on what we're hearing from the community that they want support with.
Yeah. So we come back from a break. I know Sophia and I are very interested in this DEI and philanthropy. Unless you've been living on the space station Mir, you haven't heard about some of the challenges with the DEI and all that business. And then certainly what we can do to support the efforts of what you're doing. What you do is remarkable, doing it for 25 years. You'll be doing it for another 25 years, maybe 125 years for that matter, when we return with Stephanie Cook, Executive Director of the San Diego Women's Foundation. I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. Our Spotlight Show is brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. We will be right back.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. Thrilled to have in the studio with us today Stephanie Cook, Executive Director of the San Diego Women's Foundation. My co-host is Sophia Lee, student and filmmaker, and joining us is Brandon Joe, Associate Producer of the Spotlight Show. Sophia.
Yeah, so the San Diego Women's Foundation has an outstanding commitment to DEI. Why?
That's a great question. I mean, back in, as part of our 20th anniversary strategic plan and some of the pre-work that we did in 2018 and 2019, we really looked internally at, what we're doing as an organization, whether or not we are creating lasting change in the community, whether or not the folks around the table represent the rich diversity of our region, knowing that those types of things are important in assessing whether or not we're making the impact that we want to make. And through some of that pre-work that we did, we decided that we really wanted to make sure that diversity, equity, and inclusion were key tools, key initiatives, sort of key values for us moving forward. And I think the why is really simple. Philanthropy exists to fund solutions to some of society's most pressing problems. How can you do that without bringing diversity, equity, and inclusion into the conversation? You talk about something like pay equity. How can you have that conversation without asking, what role gender plays in that? Or to take it one step further, how women of color disproportionately face pay inequity? Or you look at an issue like youth homelessness. You miss so much of what's going on in the community if you're not looking at and asking questions about why LGBTQ youth disproportionately face homelessness in their youth, or even bigger topics like hunger, which at its root is about poverty. It's really impossible to understand poverty without asking and sort of identifying how race and gender and age and ability and immigration status all overlap to impact a person's experience with poverty.
So circling back to this year's focus as far as isolation and senior citizens, how are you bringing this DEI approach into it, especially seeing as San Diego has a very, very diverse community of seniors?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our appreciative inquiry that we send out to the nonprofit community, we ask, we say this is the problem that we're going to be tackling this year. Who's most impacted geographically or demographically? And absolutely, what we're hearing is seniors that have a disability, seniors from BIPOC communities. Those are some of the folks that are most impacted by poverty, by isolation, by loneliness. So throughout our grants process, we're asking those questions. How is your work targeting these groups? We've identified these as sort of communities of concern, priority areas where we'd really like to see some of our grant funding deployed. We ask questions like, how is your organization working to center the voices of the folks that you serve in your work? And through all of those avenues, our end goal is to make sure that our grants are reaching the communities that are most underserved, most under-resourced. And so often those are BIPOC communities.
So do you go back, and you've been doing this for 25 years, and say, okay, we hit this group about 20 years ago. They were doing X, Y, and Z, and see, did they benefit from our grant? Okay, what are they doing now?
Yeah, so just a couple years ago, actually, we had we have a fellowship program. I think I mentioned that earlier, which is a cool mentorship and professional development opportunity for nonprofit staff in San Diego County to join the Women's Foundation for a 2-year program. Just a couple of years ago, one of our fellowship cohorts, as part of their project, decided to do some of that outreach to folks that we had funded in the past and ask them, is the work that we funded still going? How has it impacted your work? It's a little bit different now because a few years ago, we had program-specific funding. So it was really easy to say, hey, we funded Program A. Is Program A still running? How's it doing? Now that our grants are unrestricted, it's a little bit more difficult because we're looking at an organization holistically. Though we want to, target social isolation, our funds aren't restricted to their social isolation work. It's supporting the organization as a whole. But absolutely, we stay in touch with our nonprofit partners. I think we could do better to see sort of how some of them have evolved and changed over time. And certainly many of our grantees, we touch, 1 year and then they're back again with funding another couple of years down the road.
I mentioned last time when you were on, Stephanie, and I think it's so spot on. And I'm glad to see other organizations are doing what you're doing, is the money is unrestricted. And people have this funny notion that if you're a nonprofit, you should work for free. I go, really? Do you work for free? No, I could never work for free. So why do you think a nonprofit should work for free? And so what you folks do is say, listen, we trust the organization. You're well run. However you want to use that money, if it goes into operations, if it goes into transportation, and good for you for doing it, because so many times it was restricted money. You have to use it for X, and people forgot, well, we do got to pay people to run this organization. Talk about that shift. I think it's wonderful.
Absolutely. And I'd love to see it go further. We know that there's still so many philanthropic organizations that are continuing to restrict their funding and make nonprofit organizations jump through so many hoops to receive funding. And then dollar for dollar, they want to know exactly how you're using it. A radical concept. These folks are the experts and they know how to deploy the funds to serve the communities they're working with. And those priorities might shift. You have things like the pandemic that hit and all of a sudden this in-person programming you were wanting to do needs to shift, but oh goodness, these dollars are restricted and I can only use it to buy pencils. But right now what I need is iPads so that these kiddos can continue to access programming. That kind of stuff, I think, really pushed us and a lot of others to adopt unrestricted funding. But I think it's the most important thing right now that funders can do.
100%. Speaking about someone who's on the leadership team of the Classroom of the Future Foundation, I can echo that 2 billion times over. Brandon?
I'm curious. So for someone who is, sort of aware of the nonprofit world, and I understand the difference between like unrestricted and restricted on like a 3,000 feet level, but going down into the Women's Foundation and how you make sure that the funds are used well while also leaving it relatively like unrestricted, what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that we've grappled with, right? We had 22 years-ish of program restricted funding, so it was a real learning period for us and for our members and how we run our grants process. And we had all of these questions. How do we do a grant selection process where we're asking our members to read and identify where the best funding opportunities are if ultimately the funds are unrestricted? But where we've come to is this really beautiful space where we recognize we can still focus our grants and say, we want to impact youth homelessness, for example, and ask an organization to write in about that. But at the end of the day, when an organization receives funding, we say use it for whatever you need. If you need a fridge for your break room, and that's ultimately what's going to keep your staff nourished so they can continue to do the impactful work they're doing, that's phenomenal. The impact reporting that we do is so simple. It's what are you most proud of? How many folks did you serve in this, rough category of youth homelessness or social isolation and seniors? We're not asking them to create new metrics for us about how our dollars impacted their programming. We're saying, tell us what you're most proud of. Tell us where the needs still are. Tell us how we can continue to support you.
And in addition to that, it seems like you guys are, as you mentioned, fully engaged. And so you're not just shoving off money if they fill out a form. You visit them. And you vet them in a way that seems is uncommon for grant writing institutions. I don't know.
Certainly it's uncommon to the level they do it. And, they are all 200 members are knee deep and, they're going to visit, they're going to look at it. Good, organizations that are granting money will certainly spend time and not just sit there and just shoot out something in that area. But I don't know anyone who does it to the level of the San Diego Women's Foundation in that area.
Curious, is it more uncommon to do like in-person vetting for?
Well, there's a lot of organizations that give, and some of them, just do a checkbook philanthropy, which only goes so far. And then there are ones like the Women's Foundation that is the poster child for they're actually going to vet you, and they're going to look, and they're going to ask questions, and that's it. Some do it, but not as well as the San Diego Foundation. But got a Women's Foundation. But got a question for you, and here's Sophia. Obviously, very, very bright students, going to be, graduating soon. Going to be doing her own podcast with one of her colleagues. Do you ever go into the high schools and ask them what some of the needs are? Because I'll tell you, Sophia is not afraid to share her opinion, which is to make her so a very successful leader. She already is a successful leader in this. And then query what the high school students are thinking.
Well, that's such an interesting concept. I mean, I would say not directly. We're not doing that necessarily. We don't have the specific connections or programming set up within high schools, but certainly through...
We can help you with that.
We would love that. We have a lot of really big, exciting plans about future philanthropists and how to engage the next generation in philanthropy.
Well, here I'm already adding more work to Sophia's schedule. She's more than happy to be able to handle it, though. But I will guarantee, just knowing her very briefly, and what she's doing on this podcast, and just her oomph and all that business, that'd be someone. She would be a leader in saying, "Hey, I would love to take a lead in helping you open some doors and talk to folks like her. That here's what we really need, and whatever the topic may be." Am I right or wrong on that assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I would love to.
Yeah. So there's your connection.
I love it.
All right. Exactly. Because you look at, and I mentioned before, Stephanie, that Sophia was a part of a panel we had at our annual CFF College Career Pathways Summit. She did a great job. Just impressed the heck out of everybody, her and her colleagues on it, and said we need to sit there and do more with them. And they took up the call and went knee deep in it. She's going to be doing her own podcast, as I mentioned, and now co-hosting. But they shared very bluntly with a room of educators and key business leaders, here's some things we need to change in the schools, which is fine. That's how you only get better, is progressive, improvement and all that stuff. So I think that would be an interesting one for you.
I think that's brilliant. And I mean, it gets to the heart of what I was saying earlier.
Yes.
It's the people who are in these spaces who know what the needs are. And you need to trust the folks who are the high schoolers who are in high school to tell you what high school needs. Outside of that, though, I'm so inspired by the next generation. I feel like they are informed, they are inspired, they are compassionate, they care so deeply. I can't tell you how many times in conversations about the many, many things that don't seem like they're going right in the world right now, I've heard people say, we just hope that this next generation that cares so deeply is going to come along and help us find some interesting
if we give
solutions.
them the runway, if we give them the resources, if we give them the assets, we're going to be fine.
Absolutely.
It's only if we hold them back, then we deserve what we get, for God's sake. So anyway, she knows how I feel about her generation. And my daughter's a fourth grade teacher. And so she just says, you can't believe I actually spoke my daughter's class. And the questions they asked me at age 10 years old, I'm going, I wouldn't have asked that at 22 years old. Very, very bright, very exciting. What can we do to help support you and continue this unbelievable meteoric rise you've had for 25 years and 25 more years to come?
Hey, we're always looking for more members. So any opportunity to spread the word about the Women's Foundation, folks who want to come together to learn about what's going on in our region, be part of this really cool group of women who are coming together to fund solutions, join us. We have events. We would welcome the public to join us at any of our public events. Just any opportunity to spread the good word about what we're doing and the incredible impact of our nonprofit partners.
What's the website?
sdwomensfoundation.org.
So you will come back once you have identified those organizations that you're granting in the social isolation?
We'd love to.
Okay, consider that a done deal. We'll check with Sophia's schedule because she's now heard it before they've been chosen. Maybe if she's available, when you come back on, you'll join us. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Very, very good. Well, always good to see you, Stephanie Cook. Say hi to all my friends at the San Diego Women's Foundation and Krishna, your board president, who just had to fly off to London yesterday. But we understand that. And anyone knows Krishna Cabra. That's no surprise. Thank you for the great work you're doing, and we're going to look forward to when you come back on.
Thanks for having us.
I bet. I'm Drew Schlosberg. You've been listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast, now in our 19th year. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of doing great things in San Diego County. Sophia Lee, thank you for another wonderful co-hosting job. You got a beauty coming up. We got 5 students from USD. It's going to be talking about real estate and everything in between. We hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg's Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
Cloudcast Media.